Okay. That is sent out. And close out of everything else.
Sounds good. And we can probably get started with the introductions. If you want to give us a countdown, we can introduce the players.
Yep. Give me 1 second.
Oh. I do need to promote both of the players. Shoot.
Let me know when you're ready,
Promote.
Jay.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
Ready?
I am ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Welcome, Illumineers, to round 5 of the Disney Lorcana HQ tournament, constructed tournament. I hope everybody had a great Lorcana release weekend. I hope everybody got good pulls, was able to play some decks and learn how to play. We have a really interesting game today between Lao and Just Ink It. I'm Bsquared. I am also co-hosting with my amazing co-host, Jay.
Hello.
And Jay, do you want to give an overview of the deck list that we can expect from these two today?
Yeah, so this is a very exciting game or round number 5 of the constructed tournament. And I think if you have been joining us for the previous couple of live casts, we've seen Lao's deck. And it is this really interesting item, Ruby Sapphire item control list that utilizes a bunch of core items such as the apple and the Sword of Truths, as well as Maurice's and Tamatoa's, in order to kind of just provide a lot of removal, control, and also a lot of value in terms of card draw from those Maurice's. His ability is whenever you play a card, or whenever you play an item, you can draw a card. So that's a great way to kind of refill his hand. And then you have the Tamatoas that can recurse items from your discard and also just quest for a bunch of lore. Facing Lao, we're taking a look at Just Ink It, who is running a Ruby Emerald Aggro deck list. And so in it, he is running some removals from the Ruby side, such as the Dragonfires, Ruby Maui's, which is just a great kind of rush character that can attack into something the turn it's played. It doesn't need to wait until its ink is dried. And then a lot of the Emerald aggro elements, so cards that can quest for a lot of lore and really quickly kind of puts a lot of pressure on the opponent. We have cards such as Flynn Rider that can quest for 2 lore. It only costs 2, and if an opponent tries to remove him, they need to discard a card. And then we have cards like Cusco, which is an MVP of the Emerald aggro deck. He has ward, so he has protection from kind of those targeted removal from control players, and he can quest for 3 lore. And a lot of I think Jasinki is also running Pongos, which are great evasive characters, really tough to challenge into. And so this will really be an interesting matchup between kind of a more aggressive style gameplay from Just Ink It, where I think the moment he sees that if he's playing a control player, Sapphire, Ruby, those sort of deck types, he knows that he has to try to quickly win before the control player is able to stabilize the board and just be able to outvalue his cards. Whereas from Lao's perspective, we're gonna see him try to figure out ways to slow down Just Ink It enough that he can start getting his engine going. But potentially, Lao may also have ramp in his Sapphire set to be able to quickly get to those Maurices and kind of get the value from playing items there as well. So we do see a little bit of kind of not pure aggro or not pure control from either player, because Jessinget is also running those Dragonfires and Mauis and Genie on the jobs to provide a little bit of that mid-range kind of as the game goes on to get some value there. And so yeah, we'll definitely see an interesting matchup. Do you have anything to add?
No, just
Cool.
you mentioned it's the control versus semi-aggro matchup, right? He's running a couple of those, like you said, Genie on the Jobs, a couple Mother Knows Best, Dragonfires, Mauis. One thing that we've seen Lao is, even though he's running a control deck that is a very top-ended deck, right? He ramps very, very quickly. He gets to 5 very fast, and so I'm very eager to see whether or not Just Ink It can get ahead of him before he can start taking control.
Yep. And we see both players draw their initial hand of 7 cards. And I didn't see who won the dice roll, but we can at least see how they're gonna mulligan their cards here. And from Lao's perspective, he is just mulliganing his items, keeping his ramp with Grammatala, and he the question is he going to mulligan away his Maui there? From Jess Inket's perspective, he is mulliganing away his Cheshire Cats, or at least 2 of them, LeFou, and keeping or he's mulliganing away all. I bet you he's probably searching for those Flynn Riders and those early game 1-drops like Duke of Westleton's. From Lao's perspective, we see after the mulligan, he's drawn into 2 Tamatoas. Now, Laos probably wishes to see them a little bit later on in the game, but he does have some Fishbone Quills to be able to kind of ramp really quickly. So we'll see how quickly his deck can ramp. From Jessinget's side, we definitely see him kind of get that Flynn Rider and get that Duke of Westleton. So I think Jessinget must be really happy after his mulligan.
We see Lao ink a Fishbone Quill, and he's going to do a little bit of searching. He draws a Maui and a Magic Golden Flower. Something that I think is really interesting is I kind of like seeing those Cheshire Cats, because one of the quickest ways that Lao is going to have to take control of the board from Just Ink It after he throws a bunch of stuff on board, presumably, is that Maui, being able to rush the Maui into things. And I mean, Cheshire Cat banishes whatever banishes Cheshire Cat. Cheshire Cat banishes that character. And that's a really, really good trade for Just Ink It to have a Cheshire Cat out on board and have a Maui run straight into it. So we'll see how fast Just Ink It can go. I also like seeing the Flynn Rider on his end, mainly because resources are really important to Lao. Until he gets the Maurice engine on board with the items, if he's playing too many cards and inking too many cards, his hand can get kind of low. Which gives him less and less opportunities to respond to Just Ink It playing really quickly.
Definitely. And the other kind of thing that we always are curious about is how impactful will those apples and those sort of truth be against Jessinket's deck, right? Because we can see from his hand he's probably not running many princesses, and it doesn't seem like he's also running many villains. So it'll be interesting. Like of course there are going to be villains in Jessinket's deck, but it might be kind of more tricky to utilize those item removal cards in this matchup here.
Yeah, and something that I find is interesting is you see some of those characters like Jasper, and you think, oh, he has to be a villain, right? He was like an antagonist in 101 Dalmatians, but he doesn't actually have the villain keyword or the villain. I don't remember if it's called keyword, the trait. And so even though Emerald has a lot of villains that are in the Emerald ink, a lot of them for some reason don't actually have the keyword, I don't think. So
yeah, they're just like
the sword
allies or
might just be
henchmen.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So we are on turn 3, and it seems like there's just a lot of heavy cards from Lao's perspective. He's probably gonna use a fishbone quill, or does he really want to save those Mauis? And this is the issue with kind of control decks early on in the game before you set up your draw engines. It's really tough to figure out which cards to ink and which cards to keep in play. But we see Lau running the Grand Metalla into the Duke of Wesselton, and even though it doesn't kill off the Duke, Grand Metalla's ability is that she can be put into the Inkwell when she's banished, and so that's just another way for Lau to ramp quickly into probably those Mauis that he wants to play.
Yeah, I think Lau understands now that he's going into a deck that's going to just be questing faster than he is, putting things onto the board quicker than he is, and he's just his most important thing right now is getting as much ink into his inkwell as possible so that he can start playing those removal pieces like the Dragonfire, the Maui, the Maleficent that's sitting in his hand, and stop just ink it in his tracks.
One of the interesting kind of matchups that I always think from the control player's perspective is you kind of always assume as a control player that you're playing up against some sort of quick aggressive deck because that's kind of your weakness. So you try to keep cards in your hand that focuses on or that can best deal with those situations. But a lot of times, you don't kind of know really until you play your first game in a match, and potentially in future games too. Because you have that information of knowing exactly what sort of deck you're playing against, it might be give you a little bit more of an more info going into the future games too. Whereas from a kind of aggressive player's perspective, you kind of always run the same strategy no matter what against an opponent's if they're aggressive or if they're playing control. You always kind of need to try to get as many characters and as much lore questing out as you can. So that's always an interesting dynamic from my experience playing Lorcana games with different types of decks there.
Yeah, Jay, I've had people tell me over the past 2 times we've casted together that they think we are a great pairing together and casting with each other. But when it comes to play styles, I don't think we could be more different. I know that you play so much control, and I am an aggro, like, degenerate. I just love throwing things on the board and turning them sideways and trying to get to 20 lore as fast as possible. And, like, that's the name of the game. You know, on board right now, just ink it. He had a Flynn on board, and obviously he didn't want to challenge, or sorry, Lau didn't want to challenge into the Flynn because he already has a small hand size. He doesn't want to discard anything that he doesn't have to. But with the Flynn on board, that was 5 lore sitting on board. And if Just Ink It full quest this next turn, he's already up to 9. You know, he's almost halfway to his win condition. And we even see the Pongo come down as an evasive.
Yo,
That's going to be a challenge for Lau. He doesn't have anything that can deal with that currently. The Mauis can't reach it because Maui is not evasive. Pongo with evasive can only be challenged by other evasive characters. You know, he on like every turn, his goal is just to turn things sideways and get to 20 as fast as possible. And what's going to make it or break it is going to be whether or not Lau can stop him or not.
Definitely. And we kind of have a running kind of small joke in Lorcana saying Pongo is best dog and Pongo is just really strong. But in reality, he is, right? He has that evasive stat and can quest for 2. And unless like you have cards that can specifically deal with that matchup, he is very difficult. Oftentimes, he's just going to keep on questing for 2 until your opponent wins. So we'll see. I'm going to take a quick look at Lau's deck just to see if he has any ways to deal with the Pongo while I turn things over to you.
Yeah, so we talked before about Lao being in that control, playing the control deck. One of the things he has to do is get his draw engine on board as fast as possible. And he only has 2 cards in hand right now. Another one is a Maui. He doesn't want to run that Maui into the Cheshire Cat. He might run the Maui that's on board into Cheshire Cat and get a 2-for-1. But he has the Maurice sitting in hand and doesn't have any items in hand. He's basically hoping for a top deck to start getting items so that maybe he can start drawing and get into stuff that actually can get rid of the stuff that Just Inkit is playing. We see Just Inkit play a Beast, which is going to get Rush and exerted anything that was damaged, but Maui was already exerted. Beast is going to be able to challenge that Maui if he wants to and take the Maui out, allowing Just Inkit to continue to quest with Pongo and Cheshire Cat. Looks like he's going to quest with both, going up to, I believe it's 11. Yep, he's going up to 11 ink, and he's not going to challenge with the Beast. He's just going to keep the Beast up, which is a good play. Beast is 2 lore that he can use next turn if it's still on the board. We do see Maurice come down on board after drawing that sword, but to be honest, I don't know how good the sword is going to be. There's no villains on board currently. Right now, it would really just be a play 4 to draw a card, essentially. And this might be where we see Just Inkit take it away. I mean, if he gets away with too many more turns of doing this without Lao being able to answer what's on board, especially that evasive Pongo, like we said, he might just make it to 20 before Lao can do anything in response.
Yeah, and taking a look at Lao's deck, I think that one of Lao's best answers for the Pongo is actually going to be the Robin Hood that he has is running. He has ways such as the Hades that can put the Pongo into your opponent's Inkwell, or the Dragon Maleficent that can just destroy it. But Robin Hood does have the ability to challenge into evasive characters. But I feel like right now we can definitely see that Just Inkit is running away with questing and has a lot of threats on board here. So right now, Lao does have a Maui to take care of the Beast, but until Lao draws into either a Hades, a Maleficent, or a Robin Hood, or his remaining Dragonfire, I think he just can't deal with the Pongo right now.
Right. At minimum, he can play the Maui this turn, take out the Beast, and then Just Inkit has 5 lore on board. So he quests with everything next turn. And then all he needs is the Pongo to live, right? To win. So it's going to be basically Lao has 2 turns essentially to find something to get rid of this Pongo. And then even then, Lao is sitting at 0 lore. So he's going to have to really stay on top of it, continuing to pull those things that are going to keep Lao from questing with the stuff that he's throwing on board immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in general it's definitely a bit of a tougher matchup from what we're seeing. I'm gonna take a look to see if that Beast is a villain, but I don't believe he is. So that probably means that pretty much his swords don't really do anything. No, the Beast is not a villain. So essentially, what that means is Lao's apples and swords in this case isn't going to give him too much value, which is going to be tough because I think Lao needs every single bit of value from his cards in order to kind of try to stabilize the board against such an aggro player here.
Yeah, it's definitely not looking good for Lao with Just Inkit having another Beast in hand. He can just play it. If he wants to, he can run it straight into the Maui and make it so that he can quest with Hans potentially for 3 lore next turn and continue to have the Pongo. We'll see what he does, though.
Yeah, I think he wants to keep the Beast unexerted just to require some different kind of interactions from Lao. So we can see here this it wouldn't have quite mattered but if the Beast ran into the the Maui last turn, and if Lao had another Maui, probably from Jasinka's perspective, it was better just to save the beast as a backup in case somehow the Pongo got removed. The beast could also quest for 2 lore, and we can see that Lao drew into his Hades, but just a little too late there. Because while Lao could have killed the beast and played a Hades to kind of put the Pongo into the ink, Lao would not have been able to deal with the other beast on board that could quest to and help Jasinka win. So that was why he conceded that first game, and so now we're on to game 2.
Yeah, I chuckle a little when I see Just Its opening hand with those 3 Cuscos in hand.
Yeah.
Obviously, you probably don't want to keep all of them, but Cusco could be a real problem for Lao, just because, I mean, the only thing in his deck is a Maui and a Be Prepared, right? That would actually get rid of the Cusco, because Cusco has ward, so Cusco can't be chosen by something like a Hades or a Maleficent or Dragonfire to get rid of him. It looks like Just It's going to get rid of the Cuscos anyway. He's just going to try to go fast, I guess, dropping the Flynn Rider and the Pongo. He draws 2 Cheshire Cats. That's going to be good too. Jay, from a control perspective, based on last game, what's your mulligan? What's your mulligan if you're Lao? What are you trying to find?
Honestly, the Be Prepareds. And so we can see Lao actually has a pretty decent hand. I think if he has if he's going to have a chance, this one is as good as any. With early ramp from the Grammatalas and the Mickey Mouses, the one issue, and it's a strong issue here, is he's gonna have issues with finding inkable cards right now. So if he can get to 7 ink, those 2 Be Prepareds can really help him out. But notice he wants to play the Grammatala, he wants to play the Mickey Mouse. He just does not have any other inkable cards. So that's really gonna be the Achilles heel of Lao right now. And from kind of Jasinka's perspective, he has some really great turn 2s, turn 3s, and turn 4 plays with the Flynn Rider, the Cheshire Cats, and the Pongos. So it's, once again, it seems to be an uphill climb. Hopefully, we'll see Lao's draws here, and if they serve him well.
Yeah, you know, we've given Lao so much praise in the past for the apple and the sword, cards that everybody thought were going to be not great cards in the first set, and he just let them shine. And this is the matchup where they just kind of go dull. He has that swords in hand, and it's just kind of bricked. Like you said, he had a full hand, or an almost full hand of uninkables. He had 5 uninkable cards. Only 2 of them were inkable. He needs to play these ramp cards. He wants to get these ramp cards out. And because of that, he's having to get rid of his Mauis that can get rid of other cards, as Just Ink It is trying to quest and race him to 20. And like this is the downside of running some of those uninkable items that sometimes win you games, but when you're playing against a deck that they don't really work too well in, they just kind of sit in your hand, especially without the Fishbone Quill. He just can't do anything with them.
Yeah, this is case in point. Right now, he can't get out another inkable in order to play out that Mickey, and that just delays him a little bit. Funnily enough, I want to kind of bring it a little bit back to the lore side of Lorcana, which is, I really enjoy the fact that for example, in that Emerald deck, Emerald is known for being tricky, right? And we can see in this case, most of their characters are neither princesses nor villains. So you kind of add to that kind of trickiness factor there of, well, now like you don't have those main archetypes that can be removed by the sword or the apple there. So just a little side note.
That's so true. Emerald is very quickly getting the reputation of the ink that people just don't love playing against because everything that Emerald does makes it difficult for you. If he challenges into this Cheshire Cat and banishes it, the thing he uses dies. If he challenges into Flynn Rider, he has to discard a card. There aren't very many good decisions that Lao has to get rid of these characters, which makes for a great aggro deck. Like, you want to make it difficult for your opponent to get rid of these things on board that are getting you lots of lore every turn.
And this is a really key point. I wonder if Lau is considering attacking with the Grand Matala into the Flynn. It's not the best, but he has like the sword that he doesn't mind discarding. It won't kill Flynn, but at the same time, it can at least put Grand Matala into his inkwell. So I wonder if that's something that Lau is considering right now, even though it's really tough to run into a Flynn and not kill it and have to discard a card in your hand. So
I could absolutely see that play. He has the Dragonfire in hand. He knows he'd be able to use next turn to at least slow him down a little bit. And then he's that much closer to those 3 Be Prepareds that's sitting in his hand that he could use to constantly get rid of the board. If he didn't see a Cusco last turn, or last game, but if a Cusco does come down, it's a way that he can get rid of the Cusco and just really start slowing down Just Ink It, and hopefully get his draw engine going, get some of his larger characters on board that Just Ink It's going to have a really difficult time dealing with, and maybe catch back up. Because Just Ink It isn't going as fast right now. He only has 2 lore. He has 4 lore on board, but he's not going near as fast as he was last game. So maybe Lao has a little bit of chance to keep up with him. And we see that happen. He runs Grand Matala into Flynn Rider, and which will banish Grammatala into the Inkwell, just ramping up a little bit more.
Yep, and I think his plan is at least now he has a Dragonfire to deal with the Cheshire Cat, and at least he has the Mickey to kind of run into the Flynn Rider next turn. But as we can see from like kind of a card advantage perspective, his opponent definitely has more cards in hand than he does, and that's seldom a good news or a good sight to see, especially as a control player. So hopefully, Lau can find pieces of his draw engine pretty soon. I think he would love to see a Maurice and some really cheap items as his next couple of draws in his deck.
Yeah, or even like we mentioned last game, this Robin Hood would be a perfect thing to come out soon because we see the Pongo that might get played this turn as I'm talking. The Pongo comes out, and now actually Lau might not have enough cards to even play the Robin Hood looking at it. And he wouldn't have less cards in hand, so it may not matter now. But with the Pongo out on board and having fewer and fewer cards in hand, the Robin Hood is definitely something he would be looking for.
Definitely. All of these cheap items, I bet you Lau is really hoping to have drawn some of his other inkables, but I think he has plenty of cheap items in his deck, so yeah, just go straight into the inkwell as he's aiming to kind of get to that 7 ink for a Be Prepared. And honestly, he might not even run out the Dragonfire this turn. I think it might be very likely that he just wants to get as much value out of those Be Prepared as he can, so he might just wait to see if opponent wants to play out some additional creatures. But nope, he is going for the Dragonfire on the Cheshire Cat. Nope. Or the Pongo. Okay. I thought he had hovered over the Cheshire Cat, but nope. I think Lau decided that the Pongo was a greater threat because at least with the Cheshire Cat, he can still attack into it.
Right, and knowing that he has these Be Prepareds, I think either option was going to be fine. He just knew that he was going to have a more difficult time dealing with the Pongo and it being evasive. At the end of the day, he can always run something into Cheshire Cat, but with those Be Prepareds in hand, I'm sure he's hoping to draw a inkable card next turn so that he can at least have those online. and get stuff out of the way. One of the things about the combo of Ruby and Emerald is they lack a lot of draw in those colors. The only draw cards really available is the Mad Hatter, and I don't remember how many Mad Hatters Just Ink It plays, but that's his only way to draw cards. So if you can kind of make Just Ink It play all the stuff in his hand, or he has a couple dead things in hand like the Dragonfire and the Mother Knows Best that he can't really play, eventually just kind of gets into a top deck mode similar to what Lao's doing, except in Lao's case, he has multiple things that he would be able to draw to get his engine running and catch back up as the control player.
Definitely. So Just Ink It is running 4 Mad Hatters, but those are very unreliable card draw, especially against removal, because they only allow you to draw a card if you attack into it. If you like Dragonfire or play Be Prepared, they do not draw you a card. So here, I bet you Lao's really happy to see that Robin Hood. Though now it's a little bit awkward because he only has 3 3 cards in hand, and his opponent can potentially get down, but I think Lao can still potentially draw a card off of the Robin Hood next turn. But I don't think he's gonna ink the Robin Hood. I think he's going to just ping away at that Cheshire Cat, and then and continue to kind of hold out for either a less valuable card to put in his inkwell for the Be Prepareds, or potentially get some more value off of that Robin Hood. The really interesting thing is it's almost like next turn during Lao's turn, if he has an inkable, he might run out the Be Prepared rather than the Robin Hood, because we mentioned if you play out characters with Be Prepared in hand, it kind of makes Be Prepared a little bit worse, right? Because you're also removing your own characters from the board. So oftentimes it's better to play out your Be Prepareds first and then start playing out your characters there.
That is something that I was thinking about earlier. Was he keeps he attacked the Cheshire Cat with the Mickey, giving it 1 ping, and I questioned why he didn't just quest with Mickey and gain a little bit of lore, knowing that the Be Prepared is coming out relatively soon. Because what does the 1 ping matter on the Cheshire Cat if it's all just going to be banished? But just like you said, we're kind of in a point right now where Lao's finally getting a few things out on board, and the Be Prepared is less and less good just because he sets himself back to 0 and also sets Lao back to 0 in regards to characters on board. Lao has less cards in hand. Lao knows that he has a poison apple, and he would only have another Be Prepared in hand, so he doesn't have a lot to work with either.
Yeah, I wonder. Oh no, yeah. So Just Ink It does run out the Cusco. I was wondering if Just Ink It was gonna save the Cusco for after that first Be Prepared. Because now it just feels like a Be Prepared just gets so much value. I feel like Just Ink It is kind of playing right into what Lao wanted to do anyways in this case. But once again, we have to remind our viewers that the players do not have the luxury of knowing what's in each other's hand. So as commentators, we can kind of have a little bit more information about the plays and what might be the best plays, but the players do not have that information. So, for example, Just Ink It does not know that Lao had Be Prepared in his hand there.
Yeah, this is such a swing for Lao. It is. You feel so bad for Just Ink It because exactly like you said, he plays out the Cusco, probably thinking that it's somewhat fine instead of waiting for the Be Prepared. And then not only that, he decides to bounce the Robin Hood back to hand, which ultimately is just going to end up giving Lao maybe another draw, which is something he wants. It's not really doing a whole lot. Had he just kept the Robin Hood on board, Lao would have been forced to banish the Robin Hood with everything else in the Be Prepared. So just extremely unfortunate for Just Ink It. Not being obviously, like you said, not being able to see Lao's hand, but just all the wrong moves without knowing.
Yep, and we can now see potentially the power of the Robin Hoods. So that is one way you can get removal on. Does he have? Yes, he has enough to play a 1 jump ahead and to play out the Robin Hood in order to give him that extra card draw. So just enough ink, I think. Robin Hood
Yeah.
costs 6, right? And One Jump Ahead costs 2. So, yep. And I
Yeah.
bet you we're probably gonna see that line come down from Lao after a bit of a think.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Just Inkit's hand, trying to see, is this where the tides turn in this game? Because in regards to the Robin Hood coming down, if Lao decides to quest with the Robin Hood, Just Inkit can get rid of it with the Dragonfire or the Maui. But there's a lot of things that when Just Inkit bounces back to hand with this genie, that's really not anything that Lao's upset about putting back in hand, right? There's a lot of things that
It's
he's totally
yeah,
fine with
it's
putting back in hand.
especially with another Be Prepared in hand, right? So, like, honestly, I think potentially for Just Inkit, the best play might just be to Dragonfire the Robin Hood and keep on questing, because if he plays out the genie, which I might do, it's such a value temple like you get a character on board and you get to return one of your opponent's cards on board on the board. If he does play that genie and bounce a Robin Hood, he's gonna face another Be Prepared, which is going to hurt a lot. So we'll see what Just Inkit decides to do. And he does go for the correct play. I wonder, it might be really interesting to ask after match if he was kind of thinking about another Be Prepared. But so he plays out the Dragonfire just to get rid of the one character that can deal with the Pongo right now and kind of continue to put Lao on that clock.
Yeah, I feel like this is the midpoint in the matches between the control and the aggro decks. Just Inkit is just far enough away that he doesn't feel great about winning necessarily yet, and all I envision is somebody like crawling on the ground, trying so hard to get to that finish line, just one hand in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, trying to get there at 14 lore, just questing over and over with Pongo with the 2 lore. He's on a multiple turn clock, so there's definitely a lot of things that Lao can draw into. And really, you just hope to play the Cheshire, play whatever you can out on board that can quest you multiple lore a turn. Hope some of it sticks against this deck that runs so much removal that just takes things off the board before they can do anything. I definitely feel like this game still could go either way.
Yeah, and now I think we're gonna see another Robin Hood. Yep. Those Robin Hoods have surprisingly coming like clutch. I just giving a little bit of card draw. So now this is like kind of unfortunate for Lao. He's drawing all of these apples and swords, which are great against any other deck almost, I feel like, but not against this. So these cards that Lao has been drawing really are essentially dead cards in hand. And so hopefully he'll be able to kind of get over having all of those not super useful cards right now, especially given that they're uninkable. But having said that, right now we're still potentially looking at a if Just Inkit plays out the genie, which nope, he decides not to. And so he's gonna quest to 16 with the Pongo, which isn't quite lethal with just a Mad Hatter on board, because the Robin Hood can take out that Pongo. But I wonder for how long are you gonna be saving that Be Prepared? It's going to be it's gonna be tough. And right now we can see Lao just looking through his discard to see if there's any items that he can bring back with the Tamatoa, because Tamatoa's ability is when you play him and whenever he quests, you get to return an item from your discard pile into your hand.
Yeah, this board state is getting definitely a little bit scary from Just Inkit's side. I'm sure Lau is understanding now that, he has to do, I mean, he definitely has to do something about the Pongo or the Mad Hatter this turn. Otherwise, Just Inkit wins. But the question is, what do you pull back from your discard? If you have anything in your discard that's helpful, Just Inkit is getting dangerously close to that 20 lore. And it's like you said, how long do you hold to Be Prepared? Do you quest with Robin Hood and throw it down now. It has 3 more cards in hand. He may not know what he's holding. Anything. He definitely knows that whatever he throws down after the Be Prepared, Lao doesn't have anything in hand that removes anything directly. He would have to rely on a top deck, which is a little bit of a scary place to be in if you're Lao.
Yep, definitely. And ironically, or not ironically, but like oddly enough, this was one of the games where I bet you Lau would have really hoped to get the Fishbone Quill out soon, just to be able to ink some of those apples rather than. He probably has inked a lot of cards that he probably wishes that he had in his hand right now. So, uh, this is kind of the variance in Lorcana. Sometimes your deck just ends up you have the tools that you need, and sometimes you just end up not having like inked the cards that you need, and things just doesn't come out in the right order. So despite kind of like how there's a lot of skill, and there's a lot of kind of that going into constructing your deck, but at the end of the day, there's still quite that luck factor going in of, well, are relevant cards drawn, or are cards played that can kind of deal with the opponent's board right when you need it, or all of that kind of information. So luck definitely, or that random chance definitely plays a factor into kind of these Lorcana games. But having said that, I definitely have to continue to kind of commend both players having made it this far. That like there is a lot of skill in how both players pilot their decks, and that's what got them here so far. So a lot of times, sometimes that X factor is kind of just happened to be how the randomness that the draws and the top decks and the cards that you need treat you sometimes, even at this top competitive level here. So.
Exactly. For those that don't know, this is round 5 going into a 6-round tournament. So both of these players have made it this far, basically to the semifinals. Whoever wins this goes on to the finals. Both players have done extremely well. We've been following Lao since round 3 with this item deck that he came into that everybody was surprised by, and it has just taken down deck after deck. And sometimes this is just how the cards fall. You run into a deck that doesn't run anything that the swords and the poison apple can target, so your deck just becomes a lot worse. And not only that, it's an aggro deck going into a control deck. And I don't want to speak as if the game over is just yet, but it's definitely not looking good for Lao.
Yeah, well, we know like Be Prepared is coming out next turn, but being at that 19 is always so difficult. Actually, I think Lau can afford to hold on to the Be Prepared for one more turn. I see that Maleficent draw. So technically he could play out the Maleficent to kill the genie, but once again, like I said, when you have a Be Prepared, a lot of times as a control player, you want to run it out. So I would say, like, if you run out the Be Prepared, you still have 3 ink to play with. And then next turn you do have a Maleficent to kind of remove any cards. And we know that from our casting perspective that Just Think It doesn't have any characters that can quest, but from like Lao's shoes, you gotta be scared, because when your opponent's at 19, all they need to do is play out 2 characters that can even quest for 1, and just having 1 removal isn't enough, right? So it's definitely scary. But the correct play here for Lao would be to play the Be Prepared, but I could totally see a Maleficent coming down here, just because Lao might want to save that Be Prepared for potential 2 if Just Think It plays out 2 characters next turn or something like that.
Yeah, Jay, these are the games that get me on the edge of my seat, because Just Think It is at 19, but we also see in his hand, he doesn't have a character that has lore on it. He can play the Maui, but the Maui can't quest. So we see Lao play the Be Prepared, get rid of everything, we know that he has the Maleficent Monstrous Dragon in hand, and so Just Ink It is kind of relying on top decking stuff right now. But even if he top decks a card that gets him lore, he can play the Maleficent next turn and banish it, unless it's a Cusco. Cusco would get him out of this debacle. Other than a Cusco, though, he just plays Maleficent Dragon, banishes it. He has the apple on board, so that if the Maleficent Dragon stays on board, then you can use the apple to exert something and challenge it. This is one of those things where like I have no idea how this game is gonna go.
Oh, this is amazing because I think Duke is a villain, right? Duke of Westleton. So
Duke is a villain.
Of all of the cards that Sword can banish, I bet you Lao definitely doesn't want to run a Maleficent into Duke. But this is another kind of showcase of why it's so dangerous as a control player to let an opponent get to 19 lore. I'm surprised, honestly, that Just Ink It didn't run out that Duke. But for example, if your opponent is at 19 lore, all they need is any small one quest character that is unexerted to threaten lethal. And so that's why as a control player, you almost never want your opponent to be at 19 or even 18 lore there. But having said that, we do see Lao having a little bit of breathing space for the first time, I think, in this entire match. And so let's see what Just Ink It does. Maybe he wanted to save the Duke so that he could play out two characters. Like right now, if he plays out the Mad Hatter and the Duke of Westleton, does Lao have enough ink to play out both the Sword and the Maleficent? I don't think he is going to here. Wait, the Tamatoa. Oh, that Tamatoa is a saver. It reduces the cost of playing an item, right? Or does it? No.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't reduce the cost, but Lao has the apple on board, which will allow him to exert something. Yes, and that Tamatoa has enough strength that he could take out the Mad Hatter. And then if Lao wanted to, he could play the sword. But it looks like Just Ink It's going to get rid of the Tamatoa, bounce it back. That means he won't be able to play Mad Hatter and Duke this turn, but maybe he's looking to do that next turn.
Got it. Okay, so now he plays out the Maurice, and can get some value from the sword. Okay, so now it seems like Lao is, I would never say he's comfortable, but he's definitely starting to build his engine a little bit. Every single turn is just balancing precariously on that edge of a cliff, right? Because we know from Just Ink It's hand that he can always play out two relevant threats. Potentially three. But right now, Lao has the ability to deal with a couple of threats if they go out on the board at once. So it's these are the games that get you right on the edge of your seat here.
Exactly. I've seen too many Lorcana games so far where one opponent is at 19 lore and they're like just close enough to winning and they don't. Yeah, we do see the Cusco.
Yeah, I was about to say I do think that Just Ink It got his get out of jail free card because I don't think, other than a Be Prepared, there is any way for Lao to deal with that Cusco.
Yeah, this will rely on a top deck from Lao if we see the Cusco go down.
That's such a I always say Cusco is the closest thing.
Never mind.
Yeah, I was about to say Cusco is the closest thing to a burn spell there is. Not just to bring in a little bit of Magic the Gathering terminology, but essentially the idea here is Cusco has words, so there's no way really to interact with the Cusco. So you can't remove it with kind of a Maleficent or spot removal. You need to Be Prepared, and if you don't have that, Cusco can always quest next turn for guaranteed 3 lore. And so that's like if Just Ink It played any other kind of card, we realize that see, like the Duke of Westleton does not have wards, so the the Dragonfires would have been able to remove it and deal with it. Sadly, there is nothing that can deal with the Cusco.
Yeah, I think right now Lao is just digging as hard as he can for that be prepared to see if he can find the out.
And he has one more card draw in the Fish Quill card in order to try to draw into the Be Prepared. I think a Fishbone Quill is only 2, right? So he should be able to have enough.
Oh no, a fishbone quill is 3, I think.
Oh, okay. But he can ink a card to play
Oh
out the
yes,
fish.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so he still can draw a Be Prepared here, but no. So I think that Cusco
Oh,
is the get out of jail free card. If it wasn't for the Cusco, I think Lao may have had a decent winning chance there. So
yeah, I don't think there's anything that Lao can do. That looks like it will be game 2. Just ink it, taking it, going to round 6 with his aggressive Ruby Emerald deck against Lao's control Sapphire
um
Ruby item deck.
yep, it is sad to see the really cool tech Lao kind of lose here, but we can definitely see sometimes those poison apples and swords do really well, and other times they're kind of like drawing blanks. So this is I think I would have set from a get-go this would have been a really tough matchup for Lao's just because of the lack of princesses and villains in his opponent Jessinget's deck. And not to mention the fact that you're a control player running into an aggro deck, you're already always going to be a little bit on the back foot there.
Yeah, I think especially on this game too, Lao having so many uninkable cards in hand that he couldn't do much with. I mean, we saw just how long Lao was able to stall Just Ink It from winning this game. Maybe
Mm.
potentially had he had a couple inkable cards there in the beginning, been able to get on a little bit faster than he was, he would have had a fighting chance. But we finally see the item deck go down, unfortunately, as Just Ink It goes on to round 6.
Sounds good. I am going to just quickly shoot a message to both Lao and Just Ink It, inviting them onto the main stage. Yes, that give me a moment here. Yeah, so and how I guess the other kind of interesting uh question that we'll have to kind of research a little bit, and we're definitely hoping to cast round 6, the finals between Jess Inkit and the winner of Walter Jensen versus Saini, I think, and it'll be really interesting
Ooh.
to see what which deck comes out ahead in that matchup there. So we definitely for sure have one aggro deck reach the finals. I wonder if it'll be aggro versus aggro or aggro versus control, or what the second or what that final matchup is going to be too.
Yeah, I want to do a little check real quick and see if I can get a sneak peek at what Walter and who was the other one that you said was playing? Let's see.
Signy. Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like Siny is running a more control deck. Looks like he's running an Elsa steel control deck.
Oh, and I think
And
Walter runs the Ruby Amethyst control.
yes, that is exactly what it looks like it would be. So either way, it looks like it will be a aggro versus control matchup, which will be very
Yeah.
interesting to see if one of these can keep up with Just Inkit's aggressive deck.
Definitely. And the one interesting thing I would note here is that Just Inkit's aggressive deck isn't the fastest aggressive. It kind of balances or hedges the aggressiveness a little bit with that mid range with some removal. So if anything, I would say a control matchup might be more of a toss-up than potentially with, say, a against an aggro deck that consists of Amber and Emerald, or like kind of we've gotten so familiar with just how fast that turn 1 Lilo turn 2 Simba, the bodyguard card that allows for Lilo to keep on questing for 2 is. But because Jessinget doesn't run Amber, it might potentially make the matchups even a little bit more balanced there. But definitely excited to see. I think really it's gonna be a lot of skill in play here for whatever kind of that final matchup is going to be too. So it's going to be a delight to kind of uh, check out and just watch. Is this Lao? Is Lao invited? Hello, Lao.
I'm in. Yeah, I'm
Hey.
in.
Man, it's that was a real tough matchup, wasn't it?
Oh man, I mean, like, I was feeling pretty comfortable coming in, and then particularly that second game, woo, that hand really just
We were commenting about like from the get-go. I could see you only had 2 inkables. It was gonna be a bit rough there. But you,
I saw the draw, and I immediately regretted putting any of my cards back, mulliganing anything. Three be prepared.
You almost brought it back though. It ended up being like we were kind of commentating that kind of aggressive players get out of jail free card, the Cusco. If it wasn't for that, you had some answers for pretty much anything else that was gonna come down on the board. So there was really close.
Yeah, there was a point where I had the last be prepared. I knew that was my only answer to Cusco, and I had to choose: am I going to top deck removal?
Mm-hmm.
Potentially, I haven't been having the greatest of top decks there.
Mm-hmm.
Or do I need to use the be prepared now and try and climb back, and then just risk if he draws Cusco, it's game over. If not, then I'm fine. So I chose the Cusco route, and he did top deck the Cusco, and
ouch. Yo.
I had an answer to everything else. I had the Tom, the item recursions. I felt pretty comfortable playing out anything but Cusco.
Yeah. We were also mentioning kind of that this was one of those showcases where the apples and hold on, let me invite Jess Inkit. I think he is already invited. Hopefully he can hop on. But this was one of those cases where the apple and the sword really weren't the MVPs that we quite know them to be, right? There's just so few villains and or princesses in the opponent's deck there to really get all of the value from it.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely weren't able to get to a point. I think had Cusco not been top decked, I think we would have seen a little bit more of the apple. But
just being able to tap.
They definitely, they definitely did not do anything this game. So there you go. There's the downfall of the items.
Regardless, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have to commend you for how far you've made it with this rogue deck, with this deck that nobody saw coming. I mean, I've had people at the Lorcana release at my local OTS, they see Maurice, they see all the item shenanigans, and they say, man, I really want to try out an item deck. I think this would be so fun. And I just kind of laugh, chuckle under my breath, and I'm like, I have a deck list for you. Don't you worry. And so, I think you've made strides with this deck. I think we'll see more of this deck, in all honesty. After this experience, though, and throughout this tournament, obviously you haven't been able to make changes as the tournament's gone on, and the tournament's gone on for a little while because they're 48-hour windows. Are there any changes and you don't have to share this, but I'm curious, are there any changes that you're thinking about making to the deck after having it run through the ringer like this?
After that game, I would have liked to let it go over a Dragonfire. To be able to ink it in the opening hand. I mean, I think it's pretty. I think there's kind of the core package. I think there's a lot you can do with it. I think there's some flexibility you can have with it, right? You don't need to bring, all the swords, all the apples. You can swing heavy one way or the other. I would argue you probably don't even need them necessarily at all. You could run like 1 or 2 copies and up the Dragonfires, put and let it go. Just depending on what you're seeing, right? And what your experience is with Maurice and the draw is. I don't know that I would change anything personally. I unless I was really teching for something very specific. As a general build into the unknown, I think this is. I'm pretty comfortable with where it is, but there is plenty that you could do with it. I'm sure.
Yep, I was just about to say it was a tough loss, but I think you have definitely proved your point about just being able to come up with a really unique deck that I don't think anybody before this tournament had at least it wasn't on my radar at all from a control deck perspective. And so I think now like you've definitely put kind of this deck into all of our hearts, and if anything, it would be I know for sure if I'm kind of making a deck and playing some league games or something like that, I would definitely kind of run a similar deck to your list just to have some fun and playing it. So I think you definitely did a great job for showcasing just a really unique, cool tech here for all of us.
Well, I'm not able to tote the undefeated status anymore, but I think there's still one more round game to a top 8 cut. So, if I can take one more round, then I think I'll still be able to swing into the top 8, and maybe we can get revenge here on Just Ink It. And
yes.
The item deck can still see glory.
That's right. Don't give up hope yet. I'm not done. But yeah, we got a few more games. So if you guys are willing to, or if you want to continue streaming the journey of the item deck, I'm absolutely down to carry on the legacy.
Sounds great. Yeah. I guess. Do you have any other questions for Lau, Brandon?
No more questions. I'm trying to get Just Ink It in here. There seems to be some technical
I do
difficulties
know
going on.
he's East Coast too. It's pretty late for him. But he well
doesn't-
played to him, and he is the only undefeated player left in the tournament. So
Fine.
There he is.
Hello.
nice.
Welcome.
Finally got him in here.
It was hiding. It was hiding behind the top of my phone. I couldn't hit the accept.
Oh.
Yeah, I run into that problem as well. It's weird.
Glad we finally got you on here, and congratulations, Just Sink It, for going undefeated so far after five rounds. So definitely. Yep. I was just we were just talking about how this deck really kind of does really well. Did you have any ideas of the sort of deck Lau was running before you kind of played today against it? Because
no, I knew there was an item slinger deck out there, but I didn't know it was his. So no.
Yeah. So and I bet like you were probably pretty happy to see a bunch of like kind of those apples and swords just not being able to hit any, because a lot of Emerald characters aren't princesses or villains there. So we were just saying, how just the structure and nature of your deck kind of dodged a lot of removal. So that was nice.
It did. It very much did. And I still think, though, another game of 3 may end completely differently. So,
yep.
We were there at the edge of our seats on game 2. You were at 19 lore, just couldn't quite make it. And man, I bet there was just a sigh of relief when you saw that Cusco come from the top deck.
Very, very much so.
Yep. Cusco is one of the best MVPs in Emerald currently. So
yeah,
it's
he's
so
beat
good.
me many times, so it was nice to have him on my side this time. So with no
You
touchy,
can't beat
right?
him, join him.
That's right.
Very cool. So I always, and I don't think we've kind of quite interviewed you, Jess Inkit. But have so kind of talking about your deck and you kind of the Ruby Emerald burn kind of aggro with a little bit of burn and kind of mid-rangey sort of stuff. What was I guess the kind of motivation or the idea behind bringing this deck into the constructed tournament? Because I know like from my perspective, a lot of times you kind of just think, oh, aggro, I'm just gonna bring the fastest deck, which is gonna be like Amber Emerald or something like that, or a control like similar to Lao's deck or something like that. But to kind of switch it up a little bit and bring a mostly aggro deck, but something that could kind of deal with a little bit more than just kind of quest. Was there a specific strategy behind this, or was it just like a deck you really enjoyed running?
Well, I think we talked last time,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there's a little bit of dumb luck, in the sense that I probably not the greatest player, but I had worked on a deck with Sugi. We had done a collab on our channels, and it was a green red, and it had a kind of a quick start that would then go into evasive.
Mm.
And the day of the tournament, I had not submitted a deck yet or built one on Lorcania. And I went, oh crap, I've got to get this deck. Let's go green red. Let's search. Okay, there's one that looks very, oh, this is nice. It's got a Maui. It's got, okay, we'll drop the evasive package and we'll go with this. And the worst part is I don't have it anymore. So I have no clue who to give props to. So if you have this deck on Lorcania, please take props for it, because I had much more of an evasive package at the top end, and I really like kind of where this has went. So
That's really cool. Yeah. And forgive me. Yep. I now remember. You had played keyboard earlier, and that I think that was my
yes,
first solo
yeah.
stream, and it was trying to deal with technical stuff, and let's just say it's so much better to have a co-caster with Brandon here. It just takes so much. Just having to kind of do everything. I
Yes.
take half of that off of my shoulders. So that's so
Well,
helpful. But yeah, no. Go ahead.
I was just to say you do a tremendous job, and of course, I love Brandon. Brandon's a cool guy. So
Yeah, we
He
got
is
to meet at Gen
amazing.
Con.
we did.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh man. So just hoping to continue to like kind of stay in touch with all of you guys. Just
Oh yeah.
matching a face at Gen Con to a name. One of the funniest things I had said was, it's really interesting seeing like people's names and having kind of a pre-notion or like an imaginary idea, just like reading a book of how somebody would look like just based off of their profile picture and their name. And it's like, oh, so completely different when you finally see someone in person and that. But it's so great just to have that face to face. And I think honestly what has been amazing recently, now that like kind of we're starting to get LGSs and people playing locally Lorcana, is just like playing in person is just a completely kind of unique and
so fun.
amazing, fun experience compared to like TTS, which is great for connecting people who are far away. But yeah, there's just nothing like kind of going to that store and sitting down and playing a couple of games of Lorcana there. So encourage everyone to do it. Yeah.
Much rather play in person than on my computer, but I'll make do.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Speaking of playing in person, have you guys built these decks physically? Are you planning on bringing them to your LGSs? Obviously, there were a lot of local events this weekend for Lorcana release. I hope it was as good to you guys as it was to me.
Amazing.
But are you guys trying to build these decks physically, or are there other things you're trying to build?
I'm trying to build community is kind of the first thing. I'm very excited about community. We had 10 show up to our first league night. We kind of did a starter deck, and then we actually drafted a box. And I got a lovely evasive package that went 3-0. Did not do as well in my other one. And then on Friday night, we traveled about an hour to play in a box tournament that was a starter deck. And my son got to go 4-1 in the Swiss and got to make top 4. So that was kind of cool for him.
That's
my
awesome.
other son went 3-0 in our release. So they all kind of had a good taste of a fun weekend. So
Yeah, I have to say, one of my favorite things about Lorcana so far is watching how many families have come into the hobby.
Oh, yes.
And like getting to meet you and your son and the rest of your family at Gen Con, and literally seeing an entire family that is excited and playing for Lorcana just like gives me butterflies. I think it's awesome that you guys are trying to build community, and you know there's at least each other to play with, if nothing else.
Yes.
But you know, hopefully more and more people show up for you guys. That's awesome to hear.
Definitely.
This game's gonna blow up. There was 28 people up at that one tournament, so that was amazing. So
that's awesome. And do you mention do you like are you part of an LGS or?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Got it. No, that's really cool. So best of luck with that LGS, and hope you guys do well with kind of this new product. I can imagine it's probably pretty hectic trying to kind of deal with something that's new and everyone seems to like want, and the demand is so high for it. So best of luck there.
Call around, get to know your local game stores, and you won't get gouged. I think I got 4 boxes at MSRP, so you definitely gotta get to know the different game store owners. But I don't blame some of them for wanting to up a little bit because of the scalpers. But if you're gonna sell it to somebody local that you know, sell it at the right price.
Agreed.
Sorry, that's my message for tonight.
No, you're all good, man. I love it.
I think I would totally agree with that message. I certainly hope to be able to get my hands on some more product. I'm sure everyone's been just or maybe not, but like long story short, I just have horrible luck. Like I just should not be opening any packs or but having said that, like there's something just so fun about opening Lorcana and sharing kind of that moment with the family and friends there. So
well, I'll give you one last story because I probably should get to bed. But we actually, my son at Gen Con pulled a full art Elsa, and then on Friday night, my younger son, out of a starter deck, pulled another full art Elsa. And then a friend of ours that's kind of on our team, she's like family. We just consider her an adopted daughter, and my kids call her aunt and all this. But she got her product today, and a friend of ours really wanted something, so she gave her trove. And in that trove, the other girl pulled a full art Tinkerbell.
Wow.
I felt so bad for Leah because she's like, I didn't pull anything. You guys got everything. Never give your product away. You'll end up hating it.
But these are also what makes for just wonderful stories and like makes things memorable one day, like down the road. So it's really cool what kind of Lorcana has done, and what Ravensburger and Disney are kind of combining just to add a little bit of like magic and fun to our lives every once in a while. So
for sure.
Well, Jay, unless there's any other questions you have, I'm going to offer to these guys to plug any of their stuff they want to plug, your socials, your YouTubes, anything like that. We'll start with Lao.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I'm Lao pretty much everywhere that you want to find me. And elsewhere, I'm most active under Claromancy Games. It's a game publishing company that I co-own with a buddy of mine, and we've just launched our first game on Kickstarter. We're working on getting that fulfilled, hopefully by the end of this year. And so feel free to check us out and reach out if you have any questions or are interested in anything like that. But that's about it for me as far as socials go.
Cool. And how about you, Justin?
Well, send that link down in the chat. I always like new games, so I would love to check that out. But we're just kind of a family of creators that we're just kind of trying to learn as we go. And I know we've got some fun stuff coming out with our this weekend. We did some videos. We also did a pack battle among the family of who did it best. So we each opened four packs. So all 6 of my immediate family was involved. And yeah, we're on Just Ink It on YouTube. If you search Just Ink It Lorcana, you'll find us. And we're on Twitter and Instagram. And we were trying to get to 100 subscribers before the end of on opening, but we're close. We're like 84. So if you haven't subscribed, go subscribe to us.
Yeah, definitely go give these guys a subscription. They're awesome people. Like I said, we got to meet them at Gen Con. Thank you both for letting us stream and cast this. I'm sure we'll be following both of you into the final round. Just think it to see if you guys can make it undefeated and win the entire tournament, and Lao to see if we can get this item deck to glory, getting into that top 8 and still making a name for itself. Thank you guys so much. Jay, do you have anything you want to plug before we sign off?
Once again, just wanted to congratulate both players for making it this far, and thank you so much for just spending time with us. You can catch me on I have a YouTube that typically releases some content every once in a while. Just look up Jeilanin or J-U. My first name is J-I-E, last name is G-U. And I do have a Twitter that you can kind of check out, since I always update my YouTube with, or if I ever have a Twitter, or if I ever have a YouTube update, I announce it on Twitter, and that's hashtag Jeilanin. So feel free to catch me on there as well. So always appreciate the support from everyone here.
For sure.
And you guys can catch me at Bsquared24 on YouTube. You can also catch me at Twitter at Bsquared24, capital YT. And for everybody that is watching in the Discord, go over to the LorcanaHQ Twitch channel. When we do these, we live stream on Twitch where we have the cards pop up and all that kinds of stuff.
Brandon has great interface to show you some of the relevant cards, and you can actually read it. So
yeah, so go give a follow on there so you guys can watch there. Anybody that's in the Twitch stream and isn't already in the LorcanaHQ Discord, it should be in the description or in the About Me of the channel, so be sure to come join. We've got over 7,000 members in here. It's an awesome community. We're all excited for Lorcana. With that being said, congratulations to both of you again for making it this far. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate everybody that comes and watches. I hope everybody had an amazing Lorcana release weekend, and good luck to all the packs and pulls in the future. With that, we're going to sign off. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Oh. Woohoo! Great job,
man.
Brandon.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for another
Should I
good,
just keep
commentary,
saying that
guys.
after every one, or is it just clear that you guys were awesome?